Hey everyone. Last week, I celebrated my birthday with my friend group. We're all fairly close, and whilst we've never discussed presents, share gifts explicitly, we all kind of naturally fell into an unspoken pattern around what kind of birthday gifts we give to each other. We do gifts, but they're usually in the 10-40 euro range. Think things like a book, a voucher for theater tickets, maybe a nice bottle of wine, that kind of stuff. We're all young professionals or grad students, and that just fits our general income level. A good friend of mine brought her boyfriend to the party, and he gave me a gift of his own, separate from my friends. Without going into too much detail, it was a small object that had a very thoughtful connection to a trip I took in winter. I was genuinely very thankful for the gift and thought it was lovely. However, when I unpacked the item at home, something about it just caught my eye. Certain parts of the item that I would have expected to be made of glass didn't look like glass. I ended up Googling the maker's mark on the bottom and found the exact same item online for the price of 750 euros. Now, it'd be one thing if this guy was a trust fund kid for whom that kind of money was just peanuts. I'd still feel uncomfortable, but at least there'd be some logic to this then. But my friend's relationship with this guy already has massive problems, largely centered around him being underemployed and making her pick up the tab for their shared lifestyle to an undue degree. We honestly all expect the relationship to fizzle out soon because they obviously aren't compatible in some key aspects. So now I've got this 750 euro item on my shelf, and I've no clue how to handle this. It feels extremely inappropriate to have this thing. I'd feel uncomfortable accepting this sort of gift from almost anyone I know, but the fact that it's a friend's romantic partner, I'm gay and her boyfriend knows, but still, and B, said friend has issues with her partner's handling of his finances, just makes it even worse. It's also a highly specific item that I don't think he'd be likely to just have, so I'm pretty certain he must have bought this for the occasion and must be aware of its value. What do I do? My friend seems to be totally unaware of the value of the item. Do I tell her? Do I contact the boyfriend and ask him what the hell he was thinking? How would you handle this? Top comment, somebody said, I'd bring it up with your friend. There is a chance that he got a really, really good deal, or even a decent knockoff at a lower price. But honestly, if he's bad with money, even something half that price would be pretty inappropriate. Talk to your friend and offer to return the gift if it turns out to have cost as much as you suspect it did. Let them know you are incredibly grateful for his thoughtfulness, but it wouldn't feel right accepting such a lavish gift and that their company and friendship is all that you ask for. Just be honest about how you feel, and let your friend decide how she wants to proceed. Original poster replied, "Yeah, I think I'll have to have a discussion with my friend." I also considered that he might have got some kind of bizarrely amazing deal, and spent all of yesterday night Googling around for auctioning sites, and checking whether there might be a chance he bought this without knowing what it was and how much it was worth. I'm pretty sure, though, that unless something genuinely absurd happened, he must have paid at least 500 euro for this, and even that's a very generously low estimate. There is, of course, a chance that he just had this item, but it's so specific and rare that I don't think some random pseudo-finance bro just has this in his house, sees it, and thinks, huh, it's my girlfriend's friend's birthday. That might be a good chance to get rid of this. Totally bizarre behavior. I don't know what this man was thinking, but I need this thing out of my house. Another commenter, could you maybe start by sussing out where the boyfriend may have gotten the item, just in case he did actually get it for cheap somehow? If I were in your position, I would play dumb at first and just say something like, "Oh, my friend saw item you gave me and wants to buy one for himself. Do you mind telling me where you got it from so I can let him know?" And maybe he'll tell you if he got it secondhand or in another cheap way. Or if he's being dodgy about it, you could then proceed with, "I was looking into it for made-up friend and saw the item actually cost $750. I don't really feel comfortable accepting a gift that expensive." I think you're right to feel uncomfortable if it really did cost that much, but personally, I would just want to confirm that he actually paid that price for it before saying anything. Original poster replied, "I considered that as well, trying to maintain some level of vagueness about what it is. The thing that makes it valuable is that it's antique situ secondhand. There are modern versions of this item available that are reasonably priced. I initially thought my item was one of these modern versions. But anything made by the particular guy who made mine is valuable because it's old. If he bought it online, it would be downright impossible for him not to notice that similar items go for 600, 800 EUR, even if he somehow got this particular one for cheaper. I suppose there's some kind of bizarre off chance that he bought it at a flea market or antique store from someone who didn't know what they were selling. But he's a very run-of-the-mill, finance bro-ish frat boy type, and not at all the sort of guy I imagine casually meandering around flea markets and picking up valuable antiques on accident. It's such a bizarre thing to happen. I genuinely don't know whether I'm glad to have Googled it and found out. On the one hand, I'm glad to know someone did something that utterly bonkers. On the other hand, I could have gone on existing peacefully and enjoyed my pretty trinket if I hadn't found out what it was. Update to summarize the original post, my friends. Perpetually broke. Boyfriend gave me a gift for my birthday. It initially looked like a thoughtfully chosen, normal gift with a lovely connection to a recent trip to my mother's home country I took in winter. But after growing suspicious of the quality of the materials, I realized that it was in fact an antique worth hundreds of euros. Theories as to what happened included him not being aware of the item's value, possibly having bought it from someone who didn't know what they were selling, or him trying to somehow hurt his girlfriend, my friend, or trying to hit on me in a bizarre, inappropriate way. I ended up texting my friend and telling her that I had researched the gift and discovered it was worth a very inappropriate amount of money. She was very surprised by the entire situation, especially considering her boyfriend, now ex, but more on that later, is perpetually broke and makes her foot the bill for their shared lifestyle. She came over to my place and together we called him on speakerphone, where she demanded some answers. Long story short, he stole it from his own mother. He's still being a bit shady about some details, but we managed to piece together the sequence of events to a satisfactory degree. My friend was supposed to be coming to my birthday party straight from work. When she left her office, she realized she had forgotten the gift she had planned for me, a book, at home. Since she was already running late and her place is pretty far from both her work and my flat, she chose to text her boyfriend, who was having dinner at his parents' home at the time. She knew he was there and knew his parents lived close to me, so she asked him to just buy a copy of the same book at a bookshop on his way to my place so they'd have a gift. For reasons known only to him, he did not choose this simple, reasonable solution to the "we forgot our gift" issue. Instead of leaving 5 minutes early to pick up another copy of the book, he instead chose to just grab a random item off his mother's living room shelf. Without asking her. He had no idea what it was, just thought it looked pretty, took it, and stuffed it in a paper bag. He also did not text back my friend or react to her calls, so she, reasonably, assumed he hadn't read her message and ended up going back to get the book, which was why they arrived separately and with separate gifts. Meanwhile, the boyfriend had unknowingly gifted me not just any antique, no. This item had been passed down to his mother from her 3 times great-grandmother. It had been in his family's possession for literal centuries and was the only tangible connection she, his mother, still had to her home country, which, incidentally, is also my mother's home country, which he wasn't aware of, meaning that what I thought was a thoughtful connection to my trip there was a total coincidence. He had no idea of the item's cultural significance. My friend immediately made him call his mom to fess up to the entire situation. His mother had been running herself ragged, trying to figure out where this item disappeared to for days. Obviously, she never suspected thievery and was blaming herself terribly for having lost something this important. The boyfriend actually had the gall to try to convince her not to make her call his mom. He wanted to sweep the entire thing under the rug. Of course, we didn't let that happen. His mother came by my place this morning and I returned the item to her, along with some apologies for not starting investigations immediately and some nice chocolate. We had a lovely conversation about our shared cultural heritage. I assured her that the item had been treated with dignity for the entire time it was in my possession, and we parted ways with a hug. She also told me that my initial estimate of the item's value was incorrect. It's actually worth even more money. It would probably sell for a 4-figure sum at auction. I don't know what she wants to do with her son, but I hope she whoops his ass. My friend, for obvious reasons, broke up with him. Lessons learned. Google suspicious gifts and lock away your sentimentals. Valuables when people you're not entirely sure about come over. The gall of this man.
I'm sorry if this is jumbled or formatted weird. Our most recent fight just happened and I'm still upset, and I've never posted something this big using alien blue. We've been married for 4 years, together for 7. We have 2 kids, a 4-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son. I'm really not sure where to start. My husband is an overgrown child. He just doesn't know when it's time to be serious. This is the only problem in our marriage. He's extremely loving, affectionate, and kind. He loves being a dad. He loves our children more than anything, and they love him as well. He is constantly playing with them, and I think this is where issues start to arise. My husband cannot understand when it's time to put playtime on pause. I'm serious when I say he's in playtime mode with our children from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to sleep. This results in extremely hyperactive children in the morning when I'm trying to get our daughter ready for kindergarten. And it's extremely frustrating to have to struggle to get her fed, cleaned, dressed, and out the door on time for school, where he then will drive her to. At night, this results in hyperactive children who can take up to 2 hours to get to settle down and go to bed. And by then, it's way past their bedtime and will sometimes wake up grumpy in the morning because they didn't get enough sleep. He will sometimes even be egging our children on at night when we're sitting with them in bed trying to wind them down to sleep. It's incredibly infuriating, and I will tell him to stop because I'm clearly trying to get them to sleep, and all he's doing is keeping them up. He laughs and says, he's just having fun. Husband doesn't do hard discipline. He tells our kids to stop fighting each other or to stop touching fragile objects, but when it comes to timeouts or taking away things like dessert, certain toys, TV time for the day, he all but refuses. He will leave me to be the bad guy, and I'm absolutely sick of it. I'm tired of feeling like I'm the mean mom who doesn't like fun or has to ruin their fun, but he just won't do it. I've told him that he needs to stop leaving all the hard discipline up to me, says he will, but then leaves it all up to me again next time. I dread when the kids are older, and things like grounding become a thing. My husband is constantly breaking our children's toys because he wants to play with them. He's broken a little kid trampoline we got for them because he wanted to jump and play on it with them. He's broken 2, our daughter and sons, of those toddler-sized motorized cars by sitting on them and riding around with them. Like, I would look out the window and see him riding around on these things, having the time of his life. Meanwhile, our kids are standing on the edge of the yard, watching him and waiting for their turn. He's broken a little kid basketball hoop by pretending to be on a pro basketball team and doing dunks, which bend and break the actual hoop. Our daughter's birthday was last month, and one of our friends bought her a little scooter. My husband broke it within a week because he wouldn't stop playing and doing tricks on it every time he stepped outside the house for something. Our daughter was devastated because she loved that thing, even more so because she loves our friend who gave it to her, so to her it was extra special. I also feel terrible that this toy my friend spent her money on was destroyed by my husband before my daughter barely got any playtime on it. Now, my husband is 6 foot and about 20 pounds overweight. He has absolutely no business playing on these children's toys, and I've told him time and time again to stop playing on them because they aren't made for a person his size, and that he will break them. And then he does. And he'll sheepishly carry the broken toy into me and say, sorry, but then he's back at it again, destroying another toy shortly after. We got our daughter a bike for Christmas so she can start learning, and I don't even want to give it to her because I know he'll ruin it for her like he always does with their toys. These are just some of the bigger broken toy examples. There are also countless smaller things of theirs he's broken, like balls, dolls, little cars, a dollhouse, a slide, etc. He's always making our kids play with him, even when they clearly don't want to, or just want to chill out, relax, and sit and watch a movie. This mostly applies to our son, who is much more introverted, sensitive than our daughter, and usually prefers calm and quiet interaction over the loud and hyperactive playtime my husband always does. A handful of times he has overwhelmed our son by continuously pushing son to play with him, resulting in son starting to cry because he just wants to be left alone. Now, finally on to what prompted me to post here. My husband is always telling our kids and everyone else that our kids are his best friends. Since our daughter started learning to talk, he's trained her to answer the question, "Who's your best friend?" with "Daddy." Our son is in early talking stages, and he is starting to train him to do this as well. At first, I didn't see any issues with this, and actually thought it was cute, but our daughter has made a really good friend. I'll call her Chloe at school this year. Daughter is always talking about Chloe and asking if Chloe can come over. Daughter can go to Chloe's house. Today, my husband asked our daughter, "Who's your best friend?" And our daughter paused for a moment, got a huge grin on her face and said, "Chloe." And it looked like my husband had just been given the worst news of his entire life. He asked her, "What?" And our daughter started giggling and said, "Chloe" again. And my husband said, No, who's your best friend?" And again, still giggling, she says, "Chloe." My husband's face went blank and immediately removed himself from her and went into the other room. Our daughter seemed a little confused, but mostly undisturbed, and went back to watching cartoons. I followed him and asked him what was wrong, and when he started talking, I realized he's beginning to cry. He tells me that he's supposed to be our daughter's best friend, and that he can't believe she would toss him aside like that. Now, up until now, like I said, I thought this best friend thing was cute. I never realized exactly how serious my husband took this. If I had, I would have tried to put a stop to it early on, but then again, how exactly can you tell your husband to stop calling his kids his best friends? Anyway, I was a bit shocked at this point, and I admit I didn't use as much tact in my response as I probably could have, and ask him if he's serious. He says, "Of course I am," and I tell him that he's the parent. He's not supposed to be a best friend to his kids. He's supposed to be the parent. And that he's 29 years older than our daughter. Of course, she's going to eventually make friends her own age and start considering them her best friends. He tells me, I don't understand, and I told him he was being ridiculous and childish. He looks at me as if I just slapped him and tells me I'm being heartless and accuses me of not wanting him to have a good relationship with our kids and leaves the house early to go to work. I have no idea what to do. I almost feel ridiculous because how can someone have an issue with their husband loving their kids? I feel insane, and I haven't been able to talk to any friends about this because I feel like they'll all be, "So you're mad at your husband for playing with your kids? What's wrong with you?" But I just don't know what to do anymore. I don't know how to address these issues with my husband in a way he'll understand, so he'll start being reasonable about them. I also feel extremely anxious about everything now because my husband and I have been trying for the last 2 months to conceive another baby, and now I don't want to bring another child into the world without having this mess sorted out. But I know telling my husband I want to wait on this third child will devastate him. Since it's been asked a few times, I'm just going to put this here instead of typing the same comment over and over. My husband's relationship with his parents growing up was, in his words, great. He has 3 siblings, all successful adults, and his parents' interaction with our kids now give no indication that they are the reason my husband doesn't seem able to grasp parenting himself. Update 1 month later. This update would be extremely long if I typed every single detail, and still is kinda long. Whoops, so I'm gonna try and condense it. So, I sat my husband down the night he got home from work after posting my original post, and we had a long talk. Again, this would be incredibly long if I wrote all the details, so I'm gonna summarize and go in the order of my points I made in my original post. Keep in mind, our talk didn't follow the order of my post, so I'm sorry if anything seems confusing, since it would have been discussed out of order. Not knowing when to pause playtime, I told him that I know he loves playing with the kids, and I love that he loves playing with the kids, but that I really need him to work with me during bedtime. I also once again pointed out that their lack of sleep is making them grumpy and harder to manage in the mornings, and that they're growing and need their sleep. He's had a couple slip-ups since, but he's cooled it down around bedtime now and makes more of an effort to help me with bedtime. He started reading to them instead. I used to it, and is 20 times better than me at it because they love the funny voices he gives the characters. On discipline, I told him it's not fair of him to constantly make me feel like the bad guy, and that no parent likes disciplining their kids, but they need it to learn and grow into good adults, and that I need him to be united with me on punishments. He's having a little trouble with this one, but has been trying more, which I appreciate. On breaking their toys, I again told him that I know he loves playing with our kids, but he needs to stop destroying their things. That, not only is it upsetting them, but it's causing us to needlessly spend extra money to replace things that we don't need to be. I took this part of the talk to suggest we finally get a full-size trampoline, like we'd been talking about for a little while, and that he should dig out his bike from the garage so he can ride with our daughter when she learns. We're both probably more excited about the trampoline than the kids, lol. We talked more about this topic, but these are the most relevant points. He realized he goes a little too far after I described the scene I wrote about in my original post, with him riding around in their little cars while the kids are standing on the sidelines. I'm also happy to report he has stayed off our daughter's new bike. On making the kids play when they don't want to, he agreed that it wasn't cool of him to push just because he wants to play. I told him, our kids are people, and just because they're kids doesn't mean they don't deserve to have their boundaries respected or time to themselves. And now on to the best friend thing. This was the first thing we discussed. Long story short, he was feeling hurt and generally having a little trouble accepting our daughter was growing up. This is really the first big thing she's done or said to show that she is in fact growing up. And he just wasn't expecting it and handling it very poorly, which he knew he did. I took a line from a comment on my original post and told him our children will have lots of best friends in their lifetime, but he will always be their only dad. This visibly comforted him, so thank you to whoever it was who wrote that. I took a suggestion from someone on the original post and suggested that he call up his own parents and ask them for advice on how they handled watching 4 kids grow up and leave the nest. He really liked this idea and has since done so. I also showed him stories commenters on my original post shared about their relationship with their parents growing up. I told him that I'm not showing him because I think he's going to become like those parents, but that I think it's important he sees the children's side of things. These stories hit him pretty hard, which led into this. So I left something out of my original post that I didn't realize was relevant. Lots of people asked how my husband's relationship with his parents was growing up, and I answered that it was great. However, my own relationship with my parents was horrible. Long story short, I don't get along with nor even like my parents, and I talk to them maybe once a year. Growing up was miserable, to say the least. And it affected me for quite a long time, where I was a huge ball of anger and resentment because of the way my parents treated me. I told my husband about all of this a few months after we started dating, so he was aware of everything from the start. My husband told me he told himself he would be the best dad he could be because he wanted our kids to have the childhood he knew I wanted and wanted for them. Now, I started crying here and was a bit of a mess for a few minutes, lol. It was honestly one of the most touching things anyone has ever said to me. I told him he is the best dad and that I love him so much for it. Finding out that this was essentially the root of everything, it was a lot easier to continue on with the rest of my points. Everything has been great since. He really listened to what I was saying this time and has made a big effort to help me out more while also cooling it a bit with the kids. Him and our daughter have been riding around on their bikes together every weekend. I've also started learning how to ride so I can eventually join. Again, I want to thank everyone for commenting on my original post and helping me gather my thoughts. I thought a few things said about my husband were a bit extreme, but I realized that's something that happens when people give advice on a situation they only have so much info on.